Hi everybody, this is obviously a very different kind of video than what goes up on my channel, and I'm still a little nervous filming this because it is just a look more into my life and just sharing something that I've kept private over the past couple of months. But I'm also ready to share this because I'm hopeful that it's going to help somebody. There's been so much really over the past year and a half that I have not shared about and just kept private because I needed to at that time. If you've kept up with kind of just my home vlogs, I think every once in a while I would mention something about, you know, we're going through something tough right now or something along those lines, but it just wasn't something that I was ready to share yet. But today I'm going to share with you some just health things that I've had going on over the past year and a half, and then much more recently my miscarriage story. But I did also want to say, I know a lot of people over the past few months, I've gotten comments on YouTube, but also just messages from people saying, you know, obviously I haven't shared what's been going on, but people just saying that they've been thinking about me and praying for me, and I really appreciate that more than you know. If you don't know me at all and this is the first time that you're seeing me, watching one of my videos, and you clicked on this because you're going through something similar, this is why I'm making this video. Just a few months ago I was in the spot of desperately just needing to hear that I wasn't, you know, in it alone. And I honestly didn't know if this was something that I really would ever share. I didn't know if I just wanted to keep it, you know, between me and Dayton or family and like close friends. And I realized the thing that was keeping me from really wanting to share was I was really wanting to share it when the story had a happier ending, and it just doesn't yet. But that's all the reason more for why I wanted to go ahead and share it, because it's hard to find comfort in hearing people's stories when they've kind of already made it through the other side. And I know that there's a lot of people that are in the same spot as me, and so that's why I wanted to go ahead and share. You don't know what people are going through, and you don't know who you can really talk to about this kind of stuff if no one shares it. And so I think for me, I was so grateful for people online that were sharing their stories, because those are the people that I could reach out and connect with. The other thing that was super important to me is I am not making this video to come and cry on the internet. I did not want to share until I knew that I was in a spot where I was ready to help other people. And really the past couple of weeks I just have been feeling like I'm there. I'm ready to be someone that can help support other people going through this. And also, after I had already decided that I was ready to share this, I was looking at my calendar and I realized that this week actually would have been my due date, which is crazy, and I just thought it was kind of a sweet way to just reflect and remember. So here we are. I am going to kind of rewind this past year and a half and just talk through some things that I haven't shared before. In 2023 I had an ovarian tumor, and I'm gonna kind of walk through how I found that out, and then also just the whole experience that I had with it. One day I was actually right here sitting on this couch, and Ollie, our 10-pound dachshund, he's really small, he hopped across my stomach, like just to get to the other side of the couch, and he hit kind of my lower right abdomen, and I had this shooting pain kind of just go all throughout my body, and I was like, that's weird. So I pressed on it myself and it was the same effect, like really bad pain. I didn't notice the pain any other time though. It was only when pressure was directly applied to that area. Didn't hurt when I stood. Of course I started Googling, you know, what could be wrong, and everything told me that if there was an issue with some organ, it would be hurting all the time. It would be hurting when I stood up. I'd be able, you know, and so it was weird to me that I only felt pain when directly like pressing on it. So I kind of ignored it. And then like maybe 1 or 2 weeks later, the same thing happened again. I'm sitting on the couch and Ollie runs up on the couch and kind of just jumps on me, and he hit the spot again and it hurt even worse. And so that's when I brought it up to Dayton, and we just decided like I should just go make an appointment with my doctor to just make sure everything was fine. September 7th, I went into my doctor's appointment, and I made this appointment in the middle of the day. It was the middle of the work day. I think it might have been a Tuesday, because I really thought that nothing was wrong. I thought that I would go in, they would tell me that I had maybe an infection of some, I really didn't know, but I thought I would go in, they would give me maybe some medicine, and I would head back to work. So, you know, I told my coworkers it'll probably, I'll be back in 2 hours probably. Remember, I went in, they had me lay down on the table, and they kind of felt around on that area, and they pressed on it. It hurt, of course, and so they said, we're gonna have you do an ultrasound, and then we'll send you home, and within a day or two you'll get a call and we'll go over the results. And I was like, okay, because that didn't sound bad. They didn't sound too concerned. And so I went in. As I was getting the ultrasound done, the ultrasound tech was actually super chatty, and so I took that as a sign of everything's fine. But once she was done with the ultrasound, I know legally they can't tell you any news, but she looked at me and she was just like, I'm actually gonna have you go sit out in the lobby, and the doctor will come out and get you in a couple minutes. And so that, like, my stomach just dropped, and I knew I couldn't really like ask any questions, and so I just went out back in the lobby. I was by myself, of course, because for one, Dayton was also working, but I really didn't think I was gonna be getting any kind of news. So then the doctor came and got me, pulled me back into a room, and told me that I had a, what they're gonna call for now, a ovarian cyst the size of an orange on my right ovary, and that on the ultrasound it looked a little weird, and I needed to go get blood work done immediately. That I just was in shock, and I'm already not great about remembering to ask questions when I'm at the doctor, because I feel like they just talk so fast, and you know, when you get news that you're not expecting, I was just kind of in shock. I think I was just like, why do I need to go get blood work done? And they said because it is so large, there's a good chance that it's a cancerous tumor. And they literally printed out the sheet for me to go get my blood work done and sent me across the hall by myself to go get the blood work done right then. So from within 30 minutes, I had gone from nothing's actually wrong to now I might have cancer. I just felt like I was moving in slow motion. I gave them my sheet, I got checked in to get the blood work done, and I'm just sitting in this empty waiting room. And if you've ever had any kind of news like that, there's no other way to explain it except it feels like the world just stops. I got blood work done. They took a ton of blood, and I am a dehydrated queen constantly. So I started just feeling not great, and at that point I knew I wasn't going to be able to go back into work either that day. I had texted Dayton before I had gotten my blood work done and all of that, so he knew, and he came home. I think I literally just cried the whole night. I mean, what else do you do? But this begins the long, few, drawn out months of being frustrated with the hospital. So they had told me to expect a call 3 to 4 days. 3 to 4 days came and went, and I still hadn't heard from anyone. And so I decided to call the hospital. I couldn't get through to anyone, so I left a message. A few more days went by, still hadn't heard anything. So I call again, and I got through to someone, and she basically said, "Oops, we just forgot to call you." She gave me the blood results over the phone, and the way she said it was, "There's no real signs of it being cancerous right now." And I was kind of like, what does that even mean? It's either it is or it isn't, right? But she told me that it was not an ovarian cyst. I know way more about those than I ever thought that I would, but most of them are fluid filled, and mine was, it was a solid mass. And so that's the only type that can be malignant. She said that I needed to get surgery scheduled, and the danger was it was, you know, it was so large that it could twist really easily, and then it would have to be an emergency surgery to get it out. And then they tell me that the closest surgery date they have available is 6 months away. So I'm sitting here thinking, it must not be that urgent then. So the next months, we were like in the dark. No contact from the hospital, just no sense of care or urgency. And of course I'm worried, but I'm trying to convince myself that it must not be that bad because they're not worried. But the more we talked to different people, family, friends that were in that medical field, they would immediately say, no, that needs to come out right now. And so eventually I go get an MRI done to make sure that it hasn't grown a ton. Like, it was obviously still growing, and that just by itself was scary for me because there's something growing inside my body that's not supposed to be there. It obviously had grown, but not a huge amount, which was good. And then my surgery date quickly approaches. I go in for, I forget what they call it. I went in for the pre-surgery testing. They have to do a blood draw before you get a surgery. And so I went in, got my blood drawn, and literally on the car ride home from that, I started feeling bad. And I get home the next day, I'm not doing good at all. I take a COVID test and it's positive. So we had to call the hospital and they canceled my surgery. I cannot even explain the level of frustration I had for, I don't even know at who, like, just mad that that had happened. Obviously my mom and I had been talking anyways and feeling super uneasy with this hospital the whole time, but just not knowing what another option was. And that was kind of the turning point of, like, we have to find somewhere else because I don't think I'm supposed to be getting this surgery done at this hospital. We were praying that the Lord would provide someone else. We didn't know what that looked like. Within 1 week, I got a call from my parents saying that someone they knew had reached out, and not about any of this, but they were talking and I got brought up, and my situation got brought up, and this person that they were talking to said, I have connections with a surgeon in Vanderbilt Hospital in Tennessee. Would you like me to try to contact him? And we said yes. Within that week, I get a call from Vanderbilt Hospital asking me what date I'm available to come in. They had a date literally that week, so we drove down there. I met with the new surgeon. I learned more about what was going on in 1 hour with him than I learned in 6 months at this other hospital. We got a new surgery date scheduled within like 2 weeks, I think. They got me in really fast. I felt just super cared for. Not once did I ever have to call them. They were constantly calling me. So fast forward a couple weeks to December 21st, a few days before Christmas, go in for my surgery, and went into it hoping that I'd be able to keep both my ovaries, obviously, but knowing that I could wake up and they could have had to remove one of them. They could have had to remove both of them. But I remember when I woke up from the surgery, I looked over at the nurse, and I was out of it, but I kind of remember this. I just don't do that great under anesthesia. But I woke up and I asked her what happened, and she told me they removed the tumor as well as your left ovary. And I panicked. The right one was the one that we were having issues with, but I still had too much anesthesia in my system, and I fell asleep after she told me that. But once I actually woke up, I then learned what had actually happened. So going into the surgery, we thought that the tumor was about this big and that it was on my right side, but in surgery they found out that it was actually this big and it was on my left side. So what had happened was it was growing out of the left side, and it grew kind of like a kidney bean shape, and it was pushing up against the right side, which is why the pain was coming from the right side. So they did have to remove the left one because it basically had just been taken over already, but the right side was actually okay. So that was just a shock, and I was so confused at why the original hospital that I was at wasn't able to see that, or if they just read my ultrasound wrong. Like, I don't know. Now I can look back on it, and it was just an answered prayer, and the Lord like stepped in the fact that I got COVID, because if I had gone through with the surgery at this other hospital, who knows what would have happened. Post-surgery, recovery took a while for me. I was in a lot of pain, a lot more than I thought I would be. 6-8 weeks went by, and I was feeling back to normal, and I went to my post surgery appointments, and they cleared me and said that everything was looking great. And literally the week after they cleared me, Dayton and I went to Disney World, and that is when I filmed my first ever vlogs. And so that is kind of, it's just a sweet, like, fun memory to look back on, because it just felt like such a victory. Like, we are finally past that struggle. And so we went to Disney World, and I vlogged it, and that is how I just have those memories of just being so happy to be there. So leads into kind of the next part of the story, which is having a scare like that obviously had me and Dayton talking more about what does it look like to start trying to have kids, grow a family. The question that was just running in circles in my mind was, I got lucky that I only had to have one of my ovaries removed, but what happens if something happens to the other one? So then this past fall, of 2024, we found out that I was pregnant. We were so excited. I felt this heavy weight of questioning, you know, if I was going to be able to get pregnant, if I was going to be able to have kids. I just felt that lift off my shoulders, and it felt like the 8 to 9 months of fighting with the hospital and feeling left with the unknowns, it just felt like the biggest win and this big victory of like, we finally made it to the other side. To me, it was the proof of like, I'm okay. And it felt like even more of a victory, and like the timing of it, because through all of that had happened, we had other things in our lives falling apart in one swoop. I lost my job, we lost our church, we lost our insurance, and I'm not gonna, that's just a whole nother story in itself. We were just so grateful, and it just felt like we finally knew what our next chapter was. And for me, it felt like I finally knew what my next like purpose was. But then I sadly ended up miscarrying. I'm not going to talk about the actual experience. I'm going to keep that private for sure. It's really traumatizing if you've ever gone through that, you know, and everyone's story is just so different. And of course I would talk to somebody, you know, that needed to talk about it. I would share with them, but the following days and weeks were pretty brutal. I felt like just a shell of myself. I don't really remember a lot of it. I don't think I moved. I think I laid on the couch. I laid on the couch and I searched for people online that I could talk to that had gone through this, but I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't really want to talk to anyone, like family or friends. Really, Dayton just took over everything and was just so caring, and really was like the barrier that I needed between me and everyone. He just did all of the hard things of like, he was the one that, you know, let both of our parents know, and the friends that we had already told. So I'm just so grateful for him. I feel like I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about how it affected their body too in different ways. For me, I started losing a ton of hair, and that's just scary in and of itself. And growing up, I never really dealt with issues with my skin, and it just became the worst that I've ever seen it. And I'm still dealing with that because it takes a long time to recover that kind of stuff. I think the biggest thing is, more than anything, you are mourning the life that was supposed to be yours and now you don't have it anymore, and mourning even like the future experiences that are supposed to be, you know, super exciting, one of the most joyous times of your life, but now feel like in a way they're kind of ruined. You know, especially a miscarriage happening with my first pregnancy, you know, I don't know what the other side of it looks like. The excitement of seeing a positive test and telling your friends, telling your family. I did get to experience those things with, you know, the full joy and without any kind of fear, and it's hard looking forward to see how those things can be that full of joy again. I'm not saying that to complain. I think it's just the reality of, you know, my perspective is changed now. Grief definitely comes in waves, and I've always heard that, but I've never experienced it before because, and I'm really lucky that I've not really experienced a lot of deaths. My dad's parents passed away when I was really little. I didn't really understand what was going on. I've just not had anyone close to me that I've had to mourn or grieve over, and so it's kind of messed up and sad that, you know, that this is the first. But truly, like, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about it, but sometimes I'm able to think about it in a more joyful way, and then there's some days randomly that it just hits me really hard. Every once in a while, the feelings of being scared or angry, they come up again. But despite all of what has happened in the past year, I truly have this peace about it all that is just not explainable. I know that the Lord has given me some kind of strength that's definitely not mine, to be able to look back on everything and truly not believe that that was a terrible time in my life. Like, I can't explain it. I just don't see it as that. And I think even, you know, the further we get away from it, the more highlighted the way that God used people in our lives and circumstances for good throughout all of it. Dayton and I got extended time together. The Lord provided for us financially, the time and the people that came into our lives at just the right time. And also, truly, one of the reasons I'm sharing all of this to YouTube is I had the desire to start doing this a couple of months before everything started, and I really couldn't have started posting videos at a better time, because I really have found some of the best, nicest, most caring people on here, some of which are now my, you know, real life friends that I met and that I actually shared this with when it was happening. I felt so comforted and cared for in that way, and that's kind of where I'm at today. I just really hope that this video reaches the people that need to know that they're not alone, because really it can feel like you're the only person in the world going through it, especially when you don't personally know anyone else that's going through it. And I have just so appreciated the messages over the past couple of months of people checking in on me and just saying that they're praying for us or thinking about me without having a clue of what's actually going on. I'm just so grateful for all of you that like care about my life. That's kind of crazy, and I just can't thank you enough for being there for me when you didn't even know that I needed it. Thinking about this going out into the world is, you know, kind of scary because it's a very vulnerable subject. Even just sitting here talking right now, it's already felt super freeing to just be able to share. That's it. That's kind of all I have to say. I really appreciate you watching and listening, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.